o'clock?
Deliver it wrong. Oh, yeah, but we.
So as the leader training and education group comes forward and Diego gets us online with the presentation, I would just say a word about signature marks. When we drafted these together a couple of years ago, the goal, they came out of a desire to say, in Michelle Birdsall's words, paint done for me. How do we know what success looks like when we are doing the work that we do? So through the PMNs, what does it look like for children, youth, and young adult cultivation, experiential learning, leader training and education, network and capacity building? What does it look like to say that we're doing what we set out to do? And so we drafted these signature marks to say, we'll know that we're accomplishing what we set out to do. We'll know we're being successful when we are seeing leaders emerge that we have touched, and we see them formed in these ways. We see them marked by these qualities. I was already planning to say that before Marie gave her testimony, told her story about how even on our staff we can see the signature marks in our own leaders that we are forming in others. So I hope that is an encouragement to us on Thursday of Staff Summit Week, and that even as we tell our own stories, that's what we're telling stories about. We're telling stories about the leaders who are being formed in the ways that we said. If we see people being formed in this way, we'll know that we're honoring the commission that God has given us, the mission that God has given us. So, now my computer is not asleep, but I'm going to use the beautiful presentation that Diego has created for and with us to kind of give a quick overview. Leader training and education. This is kind of the core of what we do. The other PMMs are all sort of specialized areas of leader training and education. So this is kind of our table of contents. And the 5 people who will present their stories are all going to tell a story of a leader who is an illustration of one of these chapters. Okay, so the first one is leaders who build on their creative passions, the passion that they come to us with, and then develop practical skills to complement that passion. Chapter 2 is about leaders who learn how to adapt for impact in multiple contexts. So in Tracy's word, what's your most important thing? And how are you going to adapt your story, your content, to achieve that most important thing for different audiences? Chapter 3 is about creating a culture of mutual learning. So leaders who understand that we need to learn from one another. And I think we've heard the testimony today, even this afternoon, about how we ourselves are being formed by the leaders that we are training. Chapter 4, enacting practical and holistic models of spiritual formation. One of our historic ministries is that of discipleship and Christian education. And so we want to make sure that discipleship and spiritual formation is happening in all of our leader training and education programs. And finally, chapter 5, how we are curating, contextualizing best practices, because the PMMs are supposed to be about identifying and developing best practices that can be contextualized as the leaders we train go home to minister in their own communities and contexts. Okay, that's the high-level view, the introduction, the prologue. I will invite Reverend Ben Sullivan to come and give us chapter 1.
I like the book.
I'm going to tell you about a golden thread of responsibility. One of our first signature mark in leader training education works through the Native American Leadership Training Series. In this, leaders who are building on their creative passions and further developing their skills for effective ministry. Sometimes that passion is loud and visible, and other times it is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in faithfulness. Pastor Larry Jackson embodies this kind of leadership. Larry's journey did not begin with clarity about his story. Raised primarily in inner city environments like Los Angeles, Oakland, and Phoenix, he grew up navigating the complexities of identity. His parents were from different tribes. He was not fully connected to his grandparents or his ancestral roots. Much of his formation happened in the rhythm of city life, where soul and funk were the soundtrack. That's the music he likes. And survival often required strength more than reflection. Over time, Larry developed a deep sense of responsibility, whether in his 20-year military career, his family life, or his pastoral calling. His approach was consistent: show up, accomplish the mission, and then get the job done. Relationships were not always at the center, not because they lacked value, but because caution had become part of his protective framework. Then he participated in the Listen to Your Life CCL course. Something began to shift. Through the Clifton Strengths Assessment, Larry encountered language that helped him understand himself in ways he never had before. The report revealed that he was deliberate, analytical, consistent, and deeply responsible, but also caution about letting people get close. What he once saw simply as a personality began to unfold as insight. The course gave him answers to questions that he had quietly carried for years, even helping him reflect on his ancestry and life experiences with new clarity. Larry often speaks about what he calls the golden thread running through his life. For some, a golden thread might sound dramatic or outwardly exciting, but for Larry, it is something more profound, an inner peace and quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing he has done what God called him to do. He shared a story that illustrates this beautifully. Years ago, at a World Vision concert, he signed up to sponsor a child in South America. Month after month, year after year, even when the initial excitement faded and buyer's remorse crept in, Larry continued giving. He made a commitment, and responsibility would not let him walk away. From around 2012 until the child aged out of the program, he remained faithful. This is what he said: "The Listen to Your Life course helped me, and it gave me kind of like the golden thread. And for me, the excitement is not so obvious, but it's an inner peace and an inner satisfaction to know that I've done something I'm supposed to do. Not flashy, not attention-seeking, just faithful. This is exactly the kind of leadership our program seeks to nurture. Through Native American leadership training and our partnership with CCL, we are not trying to manufacture leaders. We're helping them recognize the threads God has already woven into their lives. When leaders like Pastor Larry connect their life story with practical tools for ministry, they become more self-aware and more effective in serving their communities. Larry's passion may not announce itself with volume, but is expressed through steadfast presence and discipline, commitment, and unwavering belief. And when the passion is strengthened with leadership insight, it becomes a powerful force for ministry. His story reminds us that effective Native leadership is not always defined by charisma. Often it is defined by endurance, by integrity, and by simply being the profound decision to show up. In leadership training education, we thank God for leaders like Pastor Larry Jackson and for the golden thread that continues to guide him as he builds the church and serves God's people.
Right.
I think we're up to season 6. Brian, you're up next, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm not going there. Nah, it's not safe. You can go, I'm not going, it's safe. Did you hear? Yo, I gotta tell you this story, bro. The sister I know, she said that when she was a child, she was in need, she was trouble, and she went to him, you know the him I'm talking about, I won't say his name. And he took her in the office, and she was young. She said he was saying some crazy stuff to her, even tried to touch her, dude. I mean, I'm not going. Nah, not at all. Then he was like, pray it away. Yeah, you read your Bible. And then there was that other sister. Oh, what was her name? Yeah, that's her. She was phenomenal, but why weren't they able to let her preach? They did the same thing to that dude over there. It's like, let him in, but don't let him up. It's crazy. He said, I'm not going. I'm not. You can go on to church. I'm not going. Those are the kind of stories, real stories, that I heard in a pilot session called Trauma-Informed Church. And in that class, people were allowed to examine their experiences in church in a safe space that they didn't have before. Even in a place we call, what's that place we call sanctuary? Well, it's safe for them. And they needed to talk through that stuff. But the interesting thing is these are people who were in a class to become chaplains because they still felt a call and a yearning to serve God despite the harm and the hurt they experienced. In fact, what they discovered in this session, it was because of that harm, that hurt, that trauma that pushed them into ministry so that others would not have to have that experience. And so trauma-informed church, or some might even say trauma-informed faith, is a session where we are allowed, not just the students, but we do this together. Because I don't like lecturing. We do this together. We talk about their personal stories. And I heard people connecting their personal stories to the experiences that they heard from those whom they served. And so they became better listeners. They became empaths and empathetic to whom they were serving. Not only that, but they began to redefine, do the work of redefining what sanctuary really is. We talk about decolonizing Christianity. We need to deconstruct sanctuary as it is right now. And then they wrestled with what a trauma-informed church and space looks like. I'm not talking about people's trauma, bringing trauma to the church and getting healed and saved and delivered. I'm talking about trauma that happens right in that space. And instead of praying it away, instead of spiritualizing it away, instead of Jesusifying it away, you deal with it. Why does it happen so often? And how can it change? That's what Trauma-Informed Church Session is all about. And it will begin this spring. And this was brought to you by Leadership Training and Education because we had to adapt for impact.
Really a tough act to follow. I just want that to go down on the record. Creating a culture of mutual learning in local communities and contexts. So I say all the time, adult learners don't come to us as blank slates. Arguably, neither do children. But leader training education is primarily about working with adult learners who themselves work with adult learners. Pastors who are pastoring an adult congregation. So this signature mark describes our desire to form leaders who recognize that they are themselves still disciples, who acknowledge that they still have room to learn. Leaders who can and will learn from the people they serve. So, ABHMS leader trainings strive to teach by example how to create spaces that allow for the creation of a culture of mutual learning. We do that by designing learning experiences that allow participants to learn not just from subject matter experts, but also from one another. And as I said, then we also have the privilege of learning from them. We probably have seen this most powerfully in our synchronous programming, our live in-person. That can be our in-person events like the Intercultural Leadership Institute and Discipleship Summit, our hybrid cohorts like the Summer Passionary Program and the Nurturing Children Initiative, and of course through our live online CCL courses. I will just note that CCL is already actively exploring how we're going to create similar experiences when we are asynchronous, when our learners and leaders are being trained without a live context. But in whatever form they take, our leader trainings are designed to encourage curiosity by including time for interaction through asking questions and inviting discussion. That, as Brian testified to, the learners can share their own stories and learn from one another. We create spaces where we share those personal experiences and also ministry best practices that say, you know what, I had that exact same experience and this was the strategy I used. I tried that in my context, it didn't work. Anybody else got any ideas? But don't take my word for it. Here's a testimony from a CCL learner, from an emerging leader who was marked by his experience with us. I cannot hear you, Suraj.
Is your volume up?
Zero. Let's do it.
I am Suraj Chhetri, and I serve as a minister of international ministries at First Baptist Church of Philadelphia. I took a course with Center for Continuous Learning called Baptist History, Identity, and Polity, led by Dr. Rebecca Irwindale. I joined because I am preparing for ordination, but the course ended up being way more personal than I expected. The community was amazing. Ministers and pastors from all over the US, different churches, different ministries, and different stories. Their reflections reminded me we don't figure things out alone. We grow together when we are learning. We talked about for Baptist freedom, and I realized freedom in faith isn't about doing whatever we want. It is about responsibility. The responsibility to seek truth, to listen, and to grow in Christ. That idea changed how I serve at First Baptist. It gave me something solid to stand, not just theology, but leadership grounded in grace. So, if you are thinking of taking a course through CCL, just do it. You never know how God might use it to transform your journey like He did mine.
Submitted that for our 5th anniversary promo. So, Saeed, you're next. Next, Jeff.
So we do a lot of conversation around the way in which we impact the world through all the units, through all the services and everything we do. We ought not put that down. But have you ever thought that when it comes to spiritual development and formation and discipleship, that perhaps the most significant place that happens is actually at work? I have a firm belief, inside of me, that the most impactful place that hits our homes, that hits our children, that hits our relationships, that hits how we just engage with the world is what our work life is like. Because we spend the majority of our waking hours, thinking hours, decision-making hours in our work environments. And Laura, you do a great job of reminding us in days like this to take time out and celebrate employees. Doc, you do the same thing. But do we think about how discipleship and spiritual formation happens as well? And I'll be honest with you, I don't think about it often until circumstances like this one comes up. Many of you have seen me sit either in a pantry or in one of the conference rooms or occasionally in here or maybe in my office every morning talking to the developers for the Ministry Life platform. And I'm talking with them, I don't know if you guys realize this, but every day. Whether I'm on vacation, whether I'm here, whether I'm local, whether I'm remote, we sort of have this continual conversation around the work that we're doing, but it's also become a sort of an interesting place because we have lived our lives together for the last 2 years. We've had folks lose family members, and we've all tearfully, cried together in that moment. Just recently, last December, one of the guys actually had his first child, and so he and his wife were celebrating the birth of a child. Myself, among others, we've dealt with parents and family members who have passed away and had really, really bad health issues and things of that nature. But it's also been a place where we've had a lot of spiritual conversation while still doing things like talking about technology. This right here is one conversation, and it's a series of chats with one of the brothers that we work with. His name is Faisal, who lives in Ethiopia. And mind you, I've got 2 folks from Ethiopia, 2 folks from Nigeria. We also talk about the Christian persecution that's going on over there as well. And the millions upon millions of people that are being killed, and about how they can't even leave the major cities because if they do, there's risk that they'll be killed because of what they believe. And so this conversation with Faisal began, it's a little further than this, but I'll sort of start in the conversation we were talking. It says, "You've had such a deep influence on me. There's a part of my story you don't know about my failed attempt at a relationship with God in the distant past, and how that experience turned me into an atheist. But I feel trapped in that place from 2 decades ago when I once felt close to God. So I'm going to make an excuse out of you." He's texting this to me. And he says to shamelessly return to God and blame it on you. That's beautiful. And also really heavy at the same time. So he says, so I want you to respond. I want to be a Christian like you. I want to have a relationship with the same God you have. Now that's just sort of like, that'll hit you with the wall. And then what sort of came to me in my response was a conversation that my dad had with me many years ago. He's passed away now, it's been 6 years, and it doesn't get much easier when it's birthday or the holidays come by. But this was my response. I say all this to share something akin to what my father once told me when I would say, I want to be a good man like him. He told me to not be like him, but to be a better man than him. So in that sense, I pray you want to be a Christian, not like me, but way better than me. And I pray you have a relationship with God, not like mine, but better than mine as well. And what's become beautiful is that, we exchange prayers and things like that, but we also started reading books together. And so I had just finished reading a book called Into the Heart of Romans. It's really worth looking at. It's whoever likes reading Romans, me and the other person that's in the state. But it's a really great read. I asked him to read it. He's written back, and we're sort of having book studies as well. And he's like, what an amazing book. I'm not new to theology, but this one really cooked. I loved it. Thanks for the great pick. And I say all that to say, just for a moment, just sort of in the midst of everything that we're doing, it's great that we have employee appreciation, but just really begin thinking about when it comes to spiritual formation and discipleship, what happens here? Because a lot of times we don't talk about it. We feel a whole lot about it, but we don't talk about it. But the pains that we deal with and the struggles and the stresses that we deal with here, they impact our children and our youth. They impact our spouses and our relationships and our marriages. They impact how we engage with people when we go to the weekend to do our business and job, the church and everything. And it's just as important as the things we do on the outside. Thanks.
So I guess I'll do the setup. Dr. Papp was not able to be here. She had a funeral that she needed to attend today, but we invited her to include a video so that she could share her story about leaders that she works with who curate and contextualize best practice related to their own continuous learning and leader development.
Every day, community leaders step into sacred spaces, shelters, sidewalks, food banks, and dining halls, meeting people at their most vulnerable moments. The work is heartfelt, urgent, and deeply human. But compassion alone is not enough to serve well. We must also learn well. Curating and contextualizing learning is about more than gathering information. It's about shaping wisdom for real-world ministry. Community leaders don't need endless resources, they need the right resources. Resources grounded in compassion, dignity, and lived experiences. I can recall Pastors Gary and Mary from Delaware recently share how beneficial it was for them to attend the chaplaincy skills for community ministry cohort training. They said the experience gave them practical tools and a deeper understanding of the people they serve. More importantly, it changed how they serve. They seen stronger connections at the meal programs, healthier volunteer teams, and a renewed sense of purpose in their ministry to the homeless. When learning is curated, it becomes accessible. It respects time constraints and meets leaders where they are. When learning is contextualized, it becomes transformational. It speaks directly to the realities of the homeless. It speaks to trauma. It speaks to mental health. It speaks to food insecurity, and it also speaks to cultural diversity. For those ministering in food banks and meal programs, learning must connect policy with people, logistics with love, and service with sustainability. As Pastor Gary noted, this training helped them more beyond simply serving meals to truly building community. Curated learning equips leaders to respond rather than react. It encourages listening before fixing, relationship before results, and presence before program. Pastor Mary shared that it reminded them that those they serve are not projects but their neighbors. My brothers and sisters, because when learning is rooted in context, compassion becomes competence, and serving becomes transformational. Together, let's learn with purpose, serve with humility, and lead with heart. I am Dr. Pat, and that's that.
All right, Dr. Pat.
A podcast, that's what it's called, I'm Dr. Pat.
So we have the end here, and the suggestion was made that it's not the end, it's
That's
the
right.
story continues.
Excellent.
And we look forward to partnering with all of you in that story. Any questions? I know we need to move into transition, so.
No, it's not a question so much as, I don't know, Micah and others from Impact, what the plan is, but I am wowed by these stories that are, almost like promotions and commercials. I mean, if I didn't know better, right, and I just listened to not just you all, but what we've been doing all afternoon, I would think that these are great ways to let folks out there, not just American Baptists, but anybody who will listen about some of the great work that they can get engaged with. So I just want to thank all of you, because I have a job, so I can't participate in all of the ministries, but it was just motivation. I was even willing to sign up with that whole children thing. No, but just excellent. And even those of you who had the additional, Michelle, Abigail, had the additional challenge of transcending virtually. I think these are just some great stories to promote and let people know, it just pops, But yeah, thank you.